having the courage and the conviction to also actually leave the comfort of corporate to actually go to what people refer to the streets.
Yes, they are indeed. You know what they say about the streets?
Unpredictability, but it's the resilience and the wisdom that I've gained, which I'll hopefully unpack in a bit more detail. Things like the global recession, for example. I was building a growing business. For 3 years I worked for myself because of something that was completely unexpected and nothing of my own fault and doing. I had to make the hard decision of actually saying, I'm going to close my business and I'm going to go back to corporate.
Hello, welcome to Business Done Right with myself, Coach Khethiwe. As you all know it, I am your favorite business coach. If you're joining in for the first time and you're not sure, why should I stick around, right? I want you to really stick around because the conversations that we have in this podcast are really about how can African leaders, entrepreneurs, or business owners build sustainable businesses that are profitable, that can also go globally. Here we unpack real conversations about the day-to-day experiences that we experience as entrepreneurs or a founder or a hustler or a small business owner. We call ourselves different names. So if you're ready to stop guessing and start growing, this is the podcast for you. If you have big ideas that you want to execute on and you're saying, Khethiwe, I'm not quite sure what I should be doing, I always do my best to bring in guests that will share with you what are some of those strategies or what you could start doing today, either in your business or your personal life, to move forward. All right, let's get into it. Who do I have today here in studio? And before I get into it, I want to get into how I first got to know about her. So for a lot of you that know me, I research a lot. I'm always on the internet. I'm always reading books. I'm always figuring out who is who in the country that I can get into their little circle, right? And somehow a lot of people have actually complimented me on that because I go after and I say, Beautiful. Who is this person? I want to connect with that person. I want to connect with that person. And I remember when I first connected with her was it 2022? Or when I sent her a LinkedIn message, and she gave me her email. She said, you can email me on this particular email. But I understood back then she was a very busy individual, and I had to learn that, yes, in as much as people are open to helping and, getting to know you and work together, but people are busy, really genuinely. And I was very patient. And then I saw that she's connected to somebody else that I know. And then I messaged that lady and I said, you are friends with this person. I've been trying to know this particular lady. And she said, Shame, you know what? She's very, very busy. And when I started reading your profile and understanding what is it that you do, I was like, no, it's okay. My time will come to know this particular person. And the most brilliant thing happened this year, right? Fast forward, forgot about it. And she wrote a book. Mm-hmm. Well, not just write any book. She's currently now the best-selling author, right? With the first debut book called Tear Her Down. For those of you that are not sure who I'm talking about Khethiwe Nkuna. And after I messaged her, I said, I want her book. And that is how then, by virtue of her releasing the book, I got to sit with her on this particular table. Right, Khethiwe, welcome and thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Khethiwe, and thank you for having me. It's so great to sit with you around the table. And I must also commend the important traits that you've just shared now around the importance of, proactivity and actually identifying people and researching. That's how we remain relevant, right? In terms of, and that's how we meet people that we wouldn't necessarily meet. So I think that's such an important skill, especially also for business people, and business owners. Yeah. So thank you for having me.
Thank you. And leading to that, not giving up, thinking, okay, because we could not connect back then, now you just let it go, because that's the point of building networks and relationships, that you might not connect now, but 2-3 years later, actually something powerful might actually get you together and to connect with that particular person. So for our audience that's listening, it's quite a mix, but majority could say it's entrepreneurs, small business owners. Like I said, some of them call themselves hustlers. Some have a foot in, a foot out. Do I want to do this entrepreneurship thing? Why should they stick around and listen to you?
So I think why they should is probably to get some nuggets in terms of my journey, right? And I think because my journey is what has informed the person I am today, and to go a little bit back. So I have over 21 years experience in corporate, and while in corporate as well, an interesting thing that many people don't know is I've always had multiple businesses, so I think I am an entrepreneur at heart. And I will be sharing, that journey and those nuggets and having a conversation with you as well. So I think they should be listening just to hear a little bit more around a different perspective, especially my journey of having moved from corporate, to then transitioning into what I call now my portfolio career, where I've got a number of things that I'm doing and a businesswoman as well, I think an interesting thing as well, and maybe I'll share a little bit before we dig deeper into my journey, So my career started in 2004, and I worked for Mercedes-Benz for almost 3 years. And after working for Mercedes-Benz, Khethiwe, I actually left and worked for myself. So that was my first business, consulting. And the global recession then led me to actually go back into corporate. So in 2008, the global recession hit. And in 2009, I rejoined corporate. I rejoined Momentum. And was with Momentum for 5 years and integrated the merger of Momentum and Metropolitan and established MMI Foundation, and then was headhunted by Accenture. These are all important because there's important elements and important nuggets that have all contributed into the entrepreneur I am today, so including the 11 years at Accenture, up to the level of actually being part of the executive committee, and some of these experiences are what have built the resilience, in terms of having the courage and the conviction to also actually leave the comfort of corporate to actually go to what people refer to the streets.
Yes, they are indeed. You know what they say about the streets?
Unpredictability, But it's the resilience and the wisdom that I've gained, which I'll hopefully unpack in a bit more detail. Things like the global recession, for example. I was building a growing business. For 3 years, I worked for myself and the business was growing. And because of something that was completely unexpected, and nothing of my own fault and doing, I had to make the hard decision of actually saying, I'm going to close my business and I'm going to go back to corporate. But when I then decided to go back right now full time in terms of then leaving corporate to then step into entrepreneurship full time, what gave me the courage is actually saying, if I could do it at 24 and succeed for 3 years, what would stop me right now with all the experience that I have, and the grit and the resilience that was built in that time as well. That last year was a tough year for me as a business owner.
Yeah. I want to, with what you just said, because with me, I've never worked in corporate. Well, I've never worked for anyone in a sense that I've had like a 1-year contract. I'm a full-time employee. Straight from university, I started my own business. And sometimes I wish I could know the experience of what it's like to work in corporate, because you hear people, corporate is strict, corporate is like this. And I'm like, So from your experience, having experienced the best of both worlds, what is it like being in corporate versus being an entrepreneur?
Yeah, so I think for me, probably one of the most amazing things is the strict part, is definitely something that's there because of structure and the large organizations. But I've been fortunate to work for organizations that really understood me, and gave me the platform to dream and do unconventional things, And I'll probably reflect on the 11 years at Accenture. So in the 11 years, we impacted over 92,000 young people in the corporate social responsibility portfolio. And that 92,000 is because the firm allowed me to do different things and innovative things, from youth employment programs that were in the city to collaborating with large donors. I actually raised funds with Rockefeller Foundation around 2015, where Rockefeller Foundation gave the Accenture Foundation South Africa a grant of $1 million. And that's because of the merger of the entrepreneur in me saw the opportunity when Rockefeller Foundation had this call. Our work was aligned to this. A corporate wouldn't apply for a grant, but the foundation's mission aligned with the work of Rockefeller Foundation, so I then reached out and built those relationships, But I think the main thing in terms of the comparison between the two, I think the positive elements that one doesn't have as someone who is like myself, a entrepreneur really starting out and lean, is the large machine in terms of the capacity, the scalability, and resources. As a business owner, you are IT, you are payroll, you are everything.
Always cash strapped.
Yes, compared to the large organizations, But the beauty of being a small business and an SME is the flexibility and how you're able to really move quickly without red tape and bureaucracy. So I think those are the elements that corporates might actually struggle with often because of the how large the machine is. So I think it's really the two where there are pros and cons for both. And I think for me personally, where I am right now as an entrepreneur, what I do miss is the resources that corporates have. But I enjoy the flexibility. I enjoy owning my time. I enjoy also that I actually get to write what the rules are.
Sure.
So I literally have a blank canvas. Whereas in corporate, they wouldn't necessarily, yes, they might. And like I explained with my case, they supported me and, the organizations every couple of years. That's why all the roles I've done within the spaces I've worked, it's never been a traditional role, So at Accenture, I started as a CSR person and later on looking after South Africa. Then I was looking after the Middle East, Africa, Russia, and Turkey. And then the role was expanded to include DEI and transformation. Then later they included sustainability. Also because they understood that I am someone who actually constantly seeks discomfort. I seek it. That's why I stayed there for 11 years.
That's how you would survive in entrepreneurship as well.
Yes, 100%. That's another good point that you're raising, I think, that I didn't speak about. The fact that I actually love the chaos and I love putting structure to chaos.
Yes. Oh, okay. And so that is where corporate and entrepreneurship now, the structure that you would have learned from corporate is now helping you to then run the business that you have. And now there would be two types of people, because I can tell you with my eyes closed, I don't think I would survive in corporate. But then vice versa, there's other people who say, I don't think I would survive as an entrepreneur. What do you have to say to how then does somebody know that I'm cut out strictly for corporate? Don't tell me about starting a business. To somebody saying, should I go to corporate? Oh no, I'm fine here as an entrepreneur.
Yeah, I think it's the importance of knowing yourself, right? And personal mastery. So I think with anything, as an individual, it's really important to know yourself because otherwise you'd be blown in all directions. If they say we are now starting a business selling X, which is not your area of speciality as an entrepreneur. If you don't know yourself, you'll be going that direction. So I think it's really important for us to know ourselves. And how do we know ourselves? By trying out things as well.
Okay.
Some things it might be, you can only gain the experience through lived experiences, So some of the things, it's maybe to then in corporate, if you want to try out business, start something on the side. And you get the experience, you gain the experience. I spoke about the fact that I've always had multiple businesses. So while I worked in Accenture, For the last, since 2020, since just after lockdown, up to today, I've been running Khethiwe Couture. That's my online business, in my online boutique that is a passion project of mine that I did, that I launched because of my passion for beautiful clothes, you know, and I did that in the safety of still being in corporate. But what that did is it also gave me the experience of running a business, you know, because it was, 100%. It was a proper business that is registered, and that's why it's lasted for as long as it's lasted, you know. And these experiences are then experiences that I've then taken into my other business ventures, you know. But ultimately, people can only know through experimenting with it, you know. And sometimes you're right. You just know that, you know, corporate is just not for me. Yeah. And I prefer working in the SME space, and I prefer to own my own business, which is beautiful because then you know yourself. So ultimately, it all comes down to personal mastery. If you know yourself, you know, you're not going to be blown with the wind.
And then what's your perspective? Chase the passion first, or make the money first and then allow the money to get you to do your passion? Because I think then that would be the dilemma in someone's head. That's, okay, I'm exploring, but I still need to make money. But also my passion, I still need to... Because a lot of people would say, I'm working in corporate just so that I can build up the money and then eventually go do what I love. And then there's another pool that says, regardless of the money, I'm doing what I love.
So I've always been not a person who is really about black and white, you know. It's really about flexibility and fluidity, you know. So I think for me personally, it's the fact that, you know, you gain these experiences through the journey, you know. And my own perception, you know, has always just been that, you know, there is no pure black and white. And we must also embrace the duality of life. It's such a beautiful thing, you know, where there isn't perfection. And I like to give the example of my children, you know. So I had my children in my 20s. So I had my daughter when I was 26 and I had my son when I was 29. And it was an intentional decision that I made. And I also I didn't have to say, I'm going to put my career on hold for me to have children. So I did both, you know. So I had my marriage, I had my children, and my career was growing, you know. And the importance of that is really also understanding that it doesn't have to be a zero-sum game all the time. You know, it's important to also just have the courage to say, I'm not going to go according to the rules and I'm not going to do the conventional thing, you know, because that's what has happened. Other people that might have decided that I'm going to push my career, you know, and they then get their career and they get the money, for example, as you're saying, as a business owner, versus the passion, you know, they get the money, but they then want to maybe have kids in their early 40s, you know, where sometimes maybe there are challenges in terms of that come with age, you know. So with every decision, I think it's people deciding, you know, and being a bit flexible as well, you know. And also, again, if you know yourself, you know, do what's right by you. Don't go according to the convention and the noise, you know, because like I said, if you start small, if you are in corporate, you know, you can still do passion stuff, you know, so that you fulfill that part of you while you're still in the business or in the corporate space and getting the paper, because it's also irresponsible to say, I'm going to leave everything and I'm going to go and pursue my passion blindly. You know, so I think it's really just having that balance.
Because then who are you going to ask money from when you need to buy bread? Because you let go of. It's a very tricky one, but I like the fact that know yourself, self-mastery, and not everything has to be black and white. So now I want to talk a little bit about your career and the business that you have, or your portfolio of businesses, as you call it. I like that actually, because I'm also just as multifaceted as you, so I'm going to start using that for myself. You say you like to write the rules, you don't like conventional, traditional ways of doing things, and you are very passionate about DEI, right? Mental health and inclusive leadership. How did you then move towards that?
Yeah, so it's lived experiences, So my work, while I was at Accenture, I was looking after DEI. But it's also just my own personal experience and reflection, So when I started, I spoke about the fact that I looked after South Africa and then looked after the Middle East, Africa, Russia, and Turkey. That for me was the biggest learning curve for me as a leader in terms of my own cultural intelligence and inclusive leadership. It was one of the most challenging times in my life just as a leader, So I must have been 30 at the time. And the people I was leading, so from Nigeria, for example, the gentleman that was in Nigeria was an older Islamic man, African, and didn't want to take authority from a young black female. The guy in the Middle East, similar, older man and very traditional Islamic, and because of the tradition, also just not wanting to take authority, Russia was a whole different complexity in terms of ethnicity, right? And the culture, very different, So I had to really bring everyone together so that we were one team. I could only do that if I myself knew myself and went within, because you cannot create inclusion for others if you don't belong to yourself.
Sure.
You have to do the work where you belong to yourself, because when you belong to yourself, you'll show up authentically, but with humility. You won't feel the need to be aggressive and the likes. You lead with heart when you know yourself. That's how we create inclusion, by seeing other people. So I had to go through that journey of then seeing them and understanding that the difference is actually something that is a strength, because we then see things from different perspectives. I'm not saying that I was then blinded when the gentlemen that would ignore my authority, but they had to gain and know me first. I had to gain their trust first. And we eventually got there, except for Nigeria. So the gentleman in Nigeria still continued, and 1 year, what I had to do was just not give him budget, because he refused to report back when it was reporting time. So I then leaned into my masculine energy to assert myself. There's nothing wrong with us operating in both energies, where it's not always kumbaya. If I need to bring in and be assertive, I'm going to be, But that was the starting point of my journey of inclusion, So me learning so much. And then when I looked after inclusion and diversity is what they called it, I also learned so much as a leader. In terms of the importance of inclusion and the fact that it shouldn't be seen as a grudge purchase, because organizations that are diverse outperform their peers. So it's actually a self-preservation strategy, because the more diverse you are, the more you're able to serve a wide range of clients. If organizations are homogeneous and there's sameness, you are only going to hear one perspective, So if people understand that the levels of, the more diverse we are in terms of sexual orientation, gender, ethnicity, neurodivergence, mental health, disability inclusion, so many of the markers around identity, the better served we are as an organization. And when we do create the space and include people, and they have the voice and they don't hold back, creativity levels increase and innovation increase, So this is what I learned through that work. And ultimately, it's also just about people being seen. If you see people, they show up as their full authentic self, and that's where magic happens. So I saw this work, and this is what has led me to then really dedicate my life to actually advancing inclusion and making sure that minority groups have representation, because representation matters.
But you were so young, 30 years. You were 30 years old, because people, and that's more or less the age that I'm headed to, people who are that age aren't thinking of other people. I'm thinking of fixing. How did you then say, I'm fixing this, and not just think, this is my career, I need to make it, I need to, whatever is not working here, it's not my problem. Can I get paid and move? Versus, I want to change this.
I think that the crux of why is because of my purpose, right? So everything that I do is anchored on my purpose. And my purpose, I believe, is to enable people and communities to reach their full potential. Where that started was actually at Mercedes-Benz, So at the start of my career, as a graduate trainee, the grad program worked on a rotation base. And my first rotation was into finance because my first undergrad is finance. I worked in finance for 3 months and I was like, definitely not for me. This is soul destroying for me personally. No disrespect to people that are in finance.
Allows.
Yes. And I'm really good at it, but it's not for me, And then the second rotation was into the chief operating officer's area in DFM, Davis Fleet Management. And he gave me a project called Chalk Childhood Cancer Foundation. And how we got there is because he said, what do you want to do? I thought I wanted to do finance. I don't want to do that. But what I've always been passionate about is volunteering. At the time, corporate social responsibility wasn't a thing. This is 2005.
Okay.
And I met with Chalk, and 3 months later, we had a fundraising gala dinner, and we raised just over $250,000 rand. This is how my passion found me. Because in the spaces that I was in, whether it's with Chalk, where those children are there because their parents can't afford to pay for their cancer treatment, what is the issue there? It's equality.
Sure.
Whether it's unemployed young people, the work I got to do later on at Accenture around youth unemployment, whether it's a young person in a rural community who doesn't have access to world-class education because of the fact that they were born in that setting, not because they don't lack intellect, because I truly believe that talent is dispersed equally, but opportunities aren't. If we remove the systemic barriers, the work of removing the systemic barriers, what does that create? It creates equity. And what do you do with that individual? What you then do is you see them. So my work has always been anchored. And I really count myself very fortunate that my calling found me as early as then.
Yeah.
As early as 22, my calling found me, So that is why I've then dedicated my entire life in terms of my career, my personal space, whether it's mentorship, to advance equality, to advance inclusion, to advance equality.
And now I want to lead to then this amazing work that you've done. Obviously, you have experiences, right, from it that then ultimately led to you obviously writing the book, right, Tear Her Down. What were some of those experiences in between, alongside you pursuing your purpose, the experiences that you then experienced that then led to you writing this particular book? Yes, because now you're telling us what the kind of work that you did, and it sounds very beautiful, like everything just happened, 1 + 1 = 2. But then I read your book, right? What were those experiences in between that were happening?
Yeah, so I think in the book I speak about probably around 5 experiences. There were a lot more than the 5 that I write about, and maybe I'll speak about 2, So the first one being a Black woman who I reported to, who was much older than me and was an executive. I was still relatively quite junior, who almost, I call it in the book, the quiet undermining, so what she basically, did is, in not so many words, to say there's only room enough for one here. You better curb your ambitions, and not be so ambitious here, and really excluded me in terms of meetings, opportunities. And it was much later when I reflected to actually recognize what was happening, that it's because of the potential that she saw in me, the light that she saw in me, that she was intimidated, you know. But if you have an abundance mentality, you then say, I actually like that spark and I want to play a role in harnessing that spark, rather than seeing the young person. She must have been in her 40s, you know. I was just 20 something. I think I was 26, you know. For her to then see me as that. So it's important to then have, you know, that mindset. And a lot of it in the book, I unpack the importance of, you know, healing our wounds so that we don't perpetuate the harm, you know. So if she continued to see me that way as a threat rather than a young person who's bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and has potential, and I want to play a role, you know, in shaping that potential. So that really, really damaged me, and it hurt. And it hurt because particularly it was a Black woman. You know, you expect people that look like you in spaces that aren't built for us to bring you closer rather than, you know, push you away. You know, and then later on also had another experience where someone that I trusted and someone that I had coached and mentored actually questioned my appointment into a leadership position.
Sure.
You know, and that again, I think the closeness of it really hurt. You know, but ultimately in the book, I really narrate around these experiences and the fact that it's important for us to name those things so that we are able to heal, right? Because we can't heal what we don't name. And once we name it, we then get to understand why it happens, whether it's because of insecurity, like the woman that I spoke about, you know, and maybe the person who was I was mentoring as well, whether it's internalized patriarchy, that you internalize the very systems that yes, down. You know, bringing us down, that aren't made for us to then do that to other women as a woman. You know, whether it's scarcity mentality, that you believe that I can only shine if I remove as many women around me so that I'm the queen bee, you know. Because if we don't heal from those and actually embrace the thinking of abundance, that I don't have to unscrew someone's light bulb for mine to shine brighter. Yes. There's room enough for all of us to shine. And if my sister is shining, I am 100% behind her. I give the example of my book launch. You know, my book was launched on the 31st of July. And as you mentioned, I'm a best-selling author. That best-selling author is as a result of my sisterhood. My sisterhood came through for me. My sisterhood came through for me. So the beauty of journeying with women. I had women in that room. There were over 250 people at the book launch. And starting from the person that moderated my panel, who is my friend from preschool since we were 3, to my childhood friends that I grew up with, to people that I went with to tertiary, to people at Mercedes-Benz, Momentum, Accenture. And I also want to highlight that as much as I experienced the tear her down and I write it and it's the topic of the book, the bulk of what I've experienced is the sisterhood.
Because I wanted
it's the sisterhood.
To get in then on the title of the book. Why not sisterhood, right? Why then specifically tear her down? Thinking I'm a random person, I'm walking up to the bookstore, I see this book, it's written tear her down. My first layman's thinking is, oh, this book is going to teach me how to tear someone down or how to tear another woman down. Like, it gave me a nuance of competition, how to win over the other woman, or you know, how to be better than the other woman.
Oh, okay.
You know, did you see where I'm going with this now? It's like it's like that book, The 48 Laws of Power. If you've read it, they say don't read that book because it will turn you cuckoo, because you'll start doing it teaches you things like
Manipulation, basically.
Basically, right? So then with the title, that is what I would get.
Yeah. So the title it's because of tear her down syndrome. That's what the title is about.
Can you then unpack what that
is? Yes. So tear down syndrome is this harm that we as women cause to each other, where in systems, and the book is written from a corporate space, but this is not something that only happens in corporate.
Yes.
I think as women, because why I actually started writing the book is because I was having conversations with many women, and many people could relate to this having happened to them, you know? And even when I started to speak about the book, the outpouring support indicated that many women have been impacted by this. I know a friend of mine, you know, who wrote my foreword, who then even shared to say, your book was deeply triggering because I've had this experience. You know, so I think for me, it's understanding that in as much as we speak about sisterhood, this other side also happens.
Yeah.
And it's important for us to call it out so that we can heal from it. You know, we can't address things that we don't talk about. We talk about behind the scenes, but we don't talk about openly. Because if we can heal, because ultimately the book calls for healing. You know, it's to heal whether you are a perpetrator, reflect, let it be a mirror. And it's not written from a position of, you've read the book, from a position of victimhood, from me being
I wish they could have.
You know, it's not written from a blame to the perpetrators. You know, it's really a mirror to invite introspection. Again, it goes back to the inner work, you know, so that we can begin the important work of healing.
And there's a part here where you know, where you speak about quiet undermining. Can you tell us then what quiet undermining is and how does it look like on a day-to-day basis?
So quiet undermining is what you can actually at times even almost think you're imagining things.
Yeah.
Because it's when people orchestrate things. So in front of you, people might be smiling.
Yeah.
You know, and they show support to you. But behind the scenes, they are actually doing work to undermine your credibility, you know, and it might show up in the form of smear campaigns, you know, where people then start to actually put in place a smear campaign behind the scenes. They start to almost plant the seed of doubt in people around your own capability, you know, but why it's almost deniable is because those people in front of you, they are nice. You know, they sit on panels and they speak about DEI, they speak about women empowerment, but behind the scenes, they perpetuate exclusion.
Do you think they're aware when someone is doing that? Do you think they wake up intentionally doing it? And I think this leads to the other part of your book where you speak about operating from a scarcity or fear mentality. Could it be that? Or I'm just straight out a horrible person and I'm doing this?
So it could be two things. One is because you are operating in scarcity. You are doing that because you want to ruin this person's reputation, to remove them as a potential competitor in your ambitions. So you then do all these things, you know, but you orchestrate it so carefully.
Okay.
But you yourself are not aware that you are operating in scarcity.
Okay.
But the main driver, if we assess why would someone go and just go on a smear campaign?
Yeah.
You know, the main thing is because of the scarcity, you know, and then insecurity as well, you know, because people are insecure and your light shines too bright, they want to dim it.
Yes.
You know, and then there's the other side. The reality is we live in a world where psychopaths and narcissists live among us.
Yes.
So that's the other reality where you cannot even heal a narcissist.
No, yeah.
And you cannot heal psychopaths. You know, there's no treatment for narcissism. You know, so it's both sides, you know, but I think from the scarcity thing, that's why the call is to say, do the internal work. Because why are you insecure in the first place? There's a wound.
Yes.
There's a deeper wound.
And I wanted to lead it to that because there's a part where you speak up at the end, you're calling us to heal, actually, where you actually say, if you're a wounded leader, you would wound others.
Absolutely.
So when you come to lead, where you say in the part of your book where when people think that they've arrived, they somehow think that leadership should happen. Like, I'm going to be good to people automatically. You're going to now sort of like hide all the horrible things that you've gone through. But now when you get into leadership, those horrible things, that's when they start actually coming out. So then how does then somebody know that as a leader, I'm treating people like this because I've got a deeper problem?
Again, I think everything starts with self-awareness. We need to be self-aware. And ask yourself the difficult question of why am I treating people this way? Why am I doing it? I think most people just operate from autopilot. And you just do things. But in leadership especially, intentionality is such an important thing. Things like inclusion. You cannot create inclusion if I spoke about the fact that you cannot create inclusion, make other people feel like they belong if you yourself don't belong to yourself. That belonging is the internal work, the hard work of unraveling, which is what most people run away from. It's important. And if you are doing these things, usually it's because there is a deep wound that you need to heal from.
And then if somebody says, but no, Khethiwe, who said it's my responsibility to nurse other people's feelings in the workplace? I am like this. They either work or they don't work. This is a dog-eat-dog world. It's very competitive. So are you saying that I must be nice to the other person so that they can get the position? But what if I myself also want the position? Then how do we navigate those dynamics?
So I think for me, again, I think this is ultimately also just around mindset, you know. And the time for the dog-eat-dog world is gone. The time for leadership that is not inclusive, leadership that is not empathetic. Actually, my next book is about this.
Already on to the
next. It's about, you know, empathetic and what I call in the book, the rise of feminine leadership. You know, with great power comes great responsibility. This is what people need to understand. And it's our responsibility to make sure that we take care of our people. People spend 8 hours a day at work. If people are spending those 8 hours hurt, spending those 8 hours feeling excluded, it increases the struggles around mental health, which has a direct cost to the business.
Yeah.
Because there's then a cost of absenteeism, there's a cost of presenteeism where people come to the office, but they are not well. They are just there, you know, and almost at quiet quitting. And what are you losing out? Is that truly you believe that is the truly the best of those people that you're bringing out? That's why this is important. It's important because, again, it's a business sustainability. And it's important for leaders to be inclusive leaders, to see people, because when we see people, do you know what they do? They show up 100%, 150.
Over and above, that's true.
150.
That's
so
true.
It's a cost too high to pay. The cost of exclusion.
So can you fix the individuals?
Yes.
The business will automatically then fix itself. Sure.
Leaders, you know, you mentioned, you know, that line in terms of, you know, leaders who have got unhealed wounds and unhealed scars, they perpetuate that and just cause that ripple effect. And that's why you'll then see high levels of attrition. And right now in the workplace globally is made up of 70% of the workforce are millennials, Gen Zs, and Gen Alphas. Can you believe Gen Alphas have started entering the workplace?
Imagine.
You know,
we're already struggling with these ones.
Yes. and that generation demands demands something different from leaders. You know, so if they are not seen if their mental health is a priority, so if we are not, organizations that are not changing their cultures and having cultures that are safe and psychologically safe and healthy, are losing out on the premium talent.
Sure. There's a part where when I read it, I felt like you could have just gave me a call and told it to me.
Oh, wow.
Where you said leaders, obviously this was from a corporate perspective, but I tried to bring it into my own experiences where leaders would then work with or mentor people that reflect their personality. Right? And I felt that because I see in my business, I would hire or bring in team members who are exactly like me. If I find somebody who's not like me, I'm like, they're not a great fit for the business. So how do we jump past that to say, let me see another person who's not like me and still believe that they are capable. I can bring them in, we can win together, and not just somebody who's going to be yes to everything that I say, not even challenge my views and how I want to do things. Because I'll tell you, I'm very guilty of, I would say it just outside that, okay, I want challenge. I want somebody who can challenge me. But then the moment when I actually get that challenge, I'm like, you're going to give me problems.
That's such an important thing, right? And again, I think it speaks about diversity, because diversity, that is, you are referring to diversity of thought. Because if you are only hiring people that think like you are losing out on the perspective of people that think differently from you, which is the innovation part that I spoke about, and talking about mentorship as well and leadership. It's important that we don't try and almost duplicate and clone ourselves in the people that surround us. It's important to create the space for difference because that's where creativity happens. There's a term I like to use, which is, if your organization cannot handle difference, it's not culture, it's a cult.
Sure.
Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. My business is a cult.
So it's important, right? Because it's just the intentionality of also recognizing that your perspective, there are many other perspectives, and it's important to surround yourself. I love the work around Strengths Finder because Strengths Finder encourages you to have diversity in terms of different strengths in teams. So that's, work around, I forgot who actually does that work, but what it basically does is it's a test, test that you take in terms of personalities, and it will tell you. Yes, and it will tell you, because again, if you have more of the same, I once did work with a client where the culture is, everyone is the same, they come from the same universities, and they all like craft beer. Where it's like, there is no way. There's just no way.
Can you get a tequila
and how you need to see it, and the shift
yes.
is you need to see it from a business benefit point of view. So as a leader, I've always surrounded myself with people that are different from me, and not even as a leader. I think I've always, and it's probably just by default because I'm a curious person. Yeah. I've always surrounded myself with people that are different. I remember when my children were small, they used to say, Daddy only has brown friends. Mommy has got friends. Yes. So that's really important because also what that does is for them, they then know that to also maybe have that curiosity and they know the difference between sameness and diversity.
That makes sense because when I took my test, so the personality test that I took is the Enneagram one. And it said that I'm more of I want to be impactful kind of entrepreneur. I want to change the world. I want to save people. And now when it gets to getting in the boardroom and talking money, I struggle. So then I would focus too much on the impact. How is this going to work? Versus naming the price of what it would take for me to do that work. And then the test called for me to then, if I'm going to hire people, I need to hire people that are money driven.
Absolutely.
So then it's sort of like balances us.
Absolutely.
Do you think then it's possible for what you call the sisterhood to happen when we are living in such a very dynamic and competitive world?
Yes, it is. I spoke about my sisterhood. It is absolutely possible. Like the people that I've journeyed with, that room, the 260 people that was at the book launch, most of them were people I've journeyed with. And a few people also that I've journeyed with, even on LinkedIn, for example. We've not met, but we've been connected, like you and me, we've been connected for the last couple of years on LinkedIn. Yes. We've never met in person, So there are so many women that in the last 18 months, I actually met through LinkedIn who are part of my sisterhood. And when deals are being discussed and the opportunities, they mention my name. If I am in rooms and they speak about work that is aligned to them, I mention their names.
Where can I find the sisterhood?
So it's really just around mindset, and I think maybe also maturity. Is another thing, probably.
Okay.
Because I think as we mature, and the people that I'm referring to as well, just around the last 18 months, it's a diversity of age, actually. It's not even older people.
Yeah.
But I know for sure that with maturity, the competition eases down a bit.
Yeah.
And I think with your type of work as well, because you are about impact, impact can never be done in isolation.
Yes.
No one person with your ambitions of wanting to make a difference and wanting to make change, you can't do it alone. So you need to identify those like-minded people, and you put yourself out there, we network and get into those spaces. Some of the people that I've met in the last 6 months who are, because I'm now an entrepreneur and in the SME space, have been the most amazing people that I've never been exposed to before. So there's an ecosystem of SMEs as well that I'm now getting exposed to.
And then how do you know that I've got the right sisterhood? Like, how do you know that, okay, if I'm building relationships with this person, they would open networks for me? It's a gut. I say it's a gut because I like because part of your book is you talk about relational gatekeeping, right? I think as an entrepreneur, I've experienced that a lot, where somebody I have people in my circle and there's an opportunity that comes. That's exactly what is it that I do. And they wouldn't call me to tell me, hey, there's an opportunity for this and this. They would rather than say, oh, I can do it.
And do you know why? Because they themselves have got a scarcity mentality because they want to be a jack of all trades. Because again, if you don't know yourself, you're going to be pulled everywhere.
I love how literally your book connects. Literally, I could ask whatever that you wrote in this book, healing the internal wound that you're talking about. Everything connects to the point that if you are reflecting from a position of, I do not have, right, then how you deal with other people that you're working with, the kinds of opportunities will always translate to that.
Yeah, because if you have an abundance mentality, you will bring other people.
Yeah.
The same way in a workspace, when I speak about send the elevator down, extend tables.
Yes.
It's the same principle.
Yeah.
You extend tables and you bring other people to the table.
Yeah.
Because you cannot be everything. You cannot be everything because you'll then lose focus because you are chasing opportunities rather than knowing that this is my value and I don't do anything outside of this.
Sure.
But I must bring an ecosystem of people who support this work that I do so that we work together.
And you've got your own page 92 that speaks about scarcity versus stewardship, right? And you give the differences so well that scarcity, we think there's only one spot and I must protect it, right? That stewardship, you're here to multiply, right? So that all of us can thrive. Can you tell us more a little bit about versus the scarcity and stewardship mentality? How can people move more towards being stewardships?
Yeah, so I think for me, the scarcity is very individualistic. Whereas stewardship, as the word itself says, it's leaving the world a better place than you found it.
Yeah.
You cannot do that by working alone.
Yeah.
You need to change your mindset.
Yeah.
to say, I really need to, think and expand.
Yes.
More than myself, and this is far bigger than me. I think the more we actually realize that as individuals, yes, we are here, we make a living, but if you don't align to something that is much bigger than just making money, you are in trouble, because you will continue to just chase, where the money is, and you won't have the direction, and you will operate in scarcity. But if you are so aligned to your core and your North Star, everything that you do is directed by that.
And where are men in all of this?
Men, for me, I speak passionately about the role of men as allies.
Yes.
Where if we look at the workplace and most places of power, boards and executive committees, women only make up 30%. So the men still hold the bulk of the power. So men need to use their power to influence and advocate for the shift of this 30% to move closer to the 50% mark. So with great power, again, comes great responsibility. And for me, allyship is not just a word. Allyship is a doing word. It's an action. And the action is to actually be actively advocating, coaching, mentoring, sponsoring, and making sure that you yourself, how many women are you intentionally coaching? How many women are you intentionally mentoring?
The men should be.
Yes.
And then doesn't it then sort of like contradict with what you're saying, that then men have this patriarchy, right, that they then sort of like silently pass on to us? And then isn't that how we as women then would end up building? So what do we call on men to
even on men, the patriarchy, it's going back to the heal.
Okay.
So you don't perpetuate
to the
outdated
women
norms
that you are mentoring.
Yes, outdated norms. So again, I do a lot of work around modern masculinity. What does modern masculinity look like? It's men modeling vulnerability, men modeling care, men modeling authenticity, men modeling, opening up doors for other women, where it's not just about the patriarchy, for example, and things like boys don't cry, because this is how things like mental health around men is far higher, in terms of suicides, far higher than women. And that's because we are perpetuating systems that are outdated. Topic for another day.
Literally, my brain is going buzz. Because what I love is that how, it's going to lead to the other part where we've got men who are now being, and my husband loves to call that, we're doing reverse psychology with men, where, yes, back then it was more men who were getting a lot of things. But today it's now more women that are being supported and tried to be uplifted. And now there's eventually going to be an imbalance where now what women used to experience because of men, it then becomes vice versa. It's now men at the bottom and women are sort of like suppressing men. And we have all these women empowerments that always sort of like tell us, you can do it without a man. You can do it without, but then at the end of the day, we live in a world where the two can be separated. 100%. We will always be living alongside men, right? And then the question of men who always, in the workspace, in the boardroom spaces, who say that when women are in a particular way, they're emotional, women, do you think it's more of the women that ruin the experience in the workplace, or it's more of the men that ruin it?
I think I want to talk about your first point first, just around the men and women. Someone asked me the other day if I'm a feminist. And I actually said I'm not a feminist because I believe in balance.
Yes.
And it's really important. I spoke about this earlier on, that I've never been a black or white person. It's important to balance the scale. There's a lot more work, of course, that needs to be done around the women and empowerment and progression and inclusion of women. But let's not do it at the cost of then leaving our men behind. Someone said, I was in a conference the other day, and then someone said, our children, if we continue this system and we just focus on the girls, our girl children are going to be marrying men that are broken, because they've been left behind. You know, so even as I'm a mother to a girl and a boy, and I bring them up the same way, both of them, the same way. The empowerment is the same, and the emotions, for example, I speak passionately about the fact that emotions are human. They're not feminine. And again, that's why we see the high levels of suicide, because men are taught to, you know, boys don't cry. You know, men must toughen up. You know, my son is someone who expresses his emotions and is well regulated because of that. In terms of the home responsibilities, I brought them from when they were young, that there's no gender specific roles. We all clean, we all cook. So it's important to have that on the onset. And I think in women development programs and programs even starting early around girls, let's not forget about the boys, because then we're going to have a skewed society, you know. And then the point around the emotions and women being emotional, you know, I think again, it's let's describe what emotional is. And if we're talking about emotional, and the point that I just said now, that emotions are human and not feminine.
It's just that the men have been taught to suppress them.
Yes. It's healthy. It's a well-regulated, you know, individual. You must show emotions, you know, and I think other elements around feminine leadership, it's also women are more empathetic. So, and I believe that we all have both energies. I spoke about the fact that my experience with a guy in Nigeria, I leaned into my masculine energy, you know, so it's important, and we all do. Men have got both masculine and feminine energy. And my call to men is lean as well. Don't only operate in your masculine energy. Lean into the feminine, or what they would call the softer side as well. You know, because that is how we rehumanize the workplaces.
And that is how then you start showing, when you're opening doors for other women, you're not leading from patriarchy. You're leading from, okay, now I'm tapping into my feminine energy as a man, or I'm tapping into, and knowing which energy to tap into, like you said, that was very powerful. And then I just want to quickly, as we head out, then when it comes to entrepreneurship and small business owners, what kind of support then do you think decision makers and systems can basically provide for the sustainability of our entrepreneurs in the country, who now saying don't have the structure and the stability of being entrepreneurs, of being business builders?
So I think for me, the biggest role, and I also speak passionately about the fact that our broad-based Black economic empowerment legislation is beautifully written, especially the ESD part, because that's what it's about. It's about intentionally, because for me, corporate and big business should move away from a tick box approach and truly apply spirit over form. Apply the spirit of the legislation and be intentional. If you do the right thing, you'll get the BEE points. But let that not be the driver, because then what you find is, if the BEE points are the driver, then you want to spend as little as possible and get as many points as possible. So you poke for loopholes in the legislation rather than going for the spirit, you know. So I think for me, it's really for organizations to truly be intentional. If you are in an industry, how do you develop, you know, small businesses, contribute to their development? And once you've developed them, because business, ultimately, those businesses are in business because they want to make money. How do you integrate them into your supply chain? How do you integrate them into your ecosystem? You know, and intentionally, how do you transfer skill as well? So I think for me, that's the biggest call that business and decision makers can actually make, is the true inclusion, and not just corporate, even the authors of the legislation, government themselves. government is one of the most guilty in terms of applying the broad-based Black economic empowerment legislation. So I think for me, that's the main thing. And I think ultimately this, when I speak about DEI, because I think a lot of the work we've done, whether it's the inclusion of SMEs into your ecosystem, whether it's hiring diverse candidates, the bulk of that work, it's been stuck at the D in terms of DEI. So the D is the difference, right? Let's bring in the difference. Let's hire. Let's get Khethiwe to come and be on our ESD program, and then we'll get bonus points. We'll graduate her, but we'll give her crumbs. On our procurement spend, and that's just focusing on purely the diversity. But when we truly apply equity, which is the E, equity is to say, how do I create access for someone and I meet them at their individual level so that they can flourish, removing the barriers that are impeding them from flourishing. That's how equity comes into effect. So a lot of our programs in the country have just been focusing on the diversity, but not the hard work of the equity. And when we do have equity, the product of the equity is then inclusion. And when people feel included, they belong.
And then how can SMEs, you do a lot of work around mentorship, how can they leverage mentorship, networks, and inclusive leadership in their work in such a very competitive market of entrepreneurship? And then the second question would then be more around mental health for entrepreneurs, especially young people who are feeling a lot of pressure, who are feeling isolation and burnout. What would you have to say to them around mental health awareness and just regulating their emotions, like you're saying, so that they can become better business leaders?
Yeah, I speak passionately about the fact that, I say it all the time. No one can pour from an empty cup, So before I'm an entrepreneur, I'm Khethiwe, and I must look after Khethiwe, and I must care for Khethiwe. Self-care. Someone asked me the other day, a couple of weeks ago, that isn't self-care selfish? I said, no, it's not.
Yeah.
It's self-preservation. So you cannot be your best as an entrepreneur if you don't look after yourself. And well-being, it's important to proactively look after your well-being, including your mental health. And there are free resources that are available because we know that most small businesses wouldn't have medical aids, for example, but there are free resources like the South African Depression and Anxiety Group that has a 24-hour helpline, and a crisis line as well as a suicide line. So I think for me, the main thing is the proactive care from a entrepreneurship point of view. And then the mentorship and coaching and inclusive leadership, I'm a product of all those elements. So it's important, one, to seek mentorship, to seek a mentor and coach as a SME, and again, we'll call on to big business, to actually be intentional because they have more resources, but around mentorship, an important part, and I think it links to this part that I said about the continuous development where SMEs, especially Black-owned SMEs, just continue to be seen to have perpetual potential. So they are consistent.
They are overtrained,
recycled. Yes, recycled, over-mentored, and you're put on.
To the next.
Where is the true opportunity in terms of the reason these people are in this is because they want to make money.
Sure.
Let's move beyond over-mentoring.
We should be saying, you've been mentored.
Yes.
It's good. Now here's the market.
Yes.
Run
access
your
to market.
business.
That's it. That's why you're in business.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you'd be running what I also run, which is the other side of me, which is the foundation. You wouldn't be in business. You'd then be you'd run an MPO, So businesses are in business because they want to make money. So empower them and give them access to market.
And then lastly, there's a part where I laughed in your book because I speak about this so loudly on social media, and I would find one pack saying yes, another pack saying how, but where you speak about, when we go to, there's a lot of women events, but do they really translate into like what you're talking about? Because I feel like alongside mentorship, it's a lot of these women events that are happening. What do they then eventually translate to? Do we just meet, we look cute in our red lipstick and say, oh, you look good, we must work together? And when we leave, none of that translates. So what would you say around that? A lot of these events that are happening, are you seeing the tangible fruits of it? Or is it just another tick box?
You know, you're raising such an important point. And I think a couple of months ago, our founder on Africa Women Financial Inclusion, Uzimkita, actually raised this point to say, women are tired of being empowered and mentored.
Yeah.
They want opportunities.
Yeah.
And we're also tired of just talk shops.
Yeah.
May those events lead to output.
Yeah.
You know, and again, it goes back to intentionality. And I myself, my time is really, you know, precious as a business owner. So when I assess to attend an event or not, part of the things that I look at is what is going to be the outcome of this? Is this just another talk shop? I don't do talk shops. You know, and I speak passionately about the fact that, you know, even when we create platforms, you know, like I speak, let's say it's a women's forum in a business. Let those not be moaning platforms, please. Let it be outcome based. Let it be empowerment based.
Yeah.
Let there be something tangible that we work to.
Yeah.
And that's how we then bring the men as allies, right? Where we don't sit in a room and just as women complain.
Yeah.
Oh yes, we just celebrate and we
business is
toast.
hard, and then but we must because I had made the decision late last year and this year that I am not attending any women empowerment event. Oh Lord, save me! And people are like, no, but then how do you build networks? And I'm like, but up to date, I literally have not seen what it has done for me, because I'll go there intentionally. This is who I'll connect with, and then they say, yeah, send us an email, let's connect. 2 months, they ignore your email, they don't respond to your. But they were so alive and say, yes, we're going to do this, we're going to build this. Would you then say to small business owners it's because of their own social capital? Like people want to associate with people that they know, that have got status. You are still Khethiwe there in the corner. Therefore, what are you going to do for me?
Don't even forget your own power. I think that's another important thing, right? I think I speak passionately about the fact that we are all leaders in our own right.
Yeah.
You know, but I think also the groupie mentality that usually people maybe gravitate more towards, you know, the big famous celebrities, you know. When you do exchange those details, the intentional work is you yourself saying, what is it that I see potentially doing with this person? You know, why am I exchanging the numbers? You know, and you reflect on it. When you attend an event, that's what I do. I check and I look at the agenda. I look what is being discussed, you know, because that's what's going to help me make the decision. Even speaking engagements, because there's so many requests.
Yeah.
I can't respond to everything. It's really one, also understanding that I'm not going to say yes to everything. I must say yes to things that are in my area of speciality. And I'm going to add value to, and I'm going to learn as well. There's an exchange of value.
Yeah.
That's an important thing.
Yeah. Love that. And if there's, let's say, 1 or 2 things that people should know about your book, and for those that have not read the book, to run to get the book, because I can tell you, I see a lot of myself in this book, not only from I've been the victim, but I've also been the perpetrator, right? Operating from a mindset of, if I give this opportunity to this person, what about me? No, business is very competitive. So for somebody who can just know 1 or 2 things from your book, what would you want it to be?
I think one is the power of language, right? So the book gives us language in terms of, one, naming it. So that we can start the work of healing. And beyond the naming, it's then why does it happen? So that we understand the psychology behind our own behavior, you know. And ultimately, I hope it's a mirror. You know, I hope the book is a mirror, and I've written it to invite reflection. That's why after every chapter, there's a reflection part, you know. And I think lastly, it's the manifesto. May we rise to, you know, our greatest selves, you know, and rise to the call of inclusive leadership. And also embrace the power of sisterhood. We underestimate. Can you imagine if we were united as women in the world.
We wouldn't need anybody to open doors for us.
Absolutely.
Because our own doors would be wide open.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I mean, there's a lot that I would want to ask and I want to unpack, but obviously because time, we are always limited to time, but this has been amazing. Where can people maybe get in contact with you if they're looking maybe to get your book? Anything that you would want? Where can they? I saw that you've got a YouTube series now that's coming out. Where can they then connect with you?
Thank you so much again, Khethiwe, for having me. So people can connect with me. I'm most active on LinkedIn, but I'm realizing I was reflecting that my Instagram was private for years, and I recently opened it up because I know it's important, especially as a small business, you know. So on LinkedIn, I'm Khethiwe Nkuna. On Instagram, I'm Khethi_Nzima. And the book is available at Exclusive Books as well as my website, which is tearherdown.com. And it will soon be available on Amazon and Take-A-Lot. And I think what I was sharing is a snippet of a series that I've launched, which I'm going to be sharing nuggets from my book on video to entice, people to get the book.
No, definitely. Thank you so much, Ma'am Khethiwe. And look, these are the kinds of conversation when you are done, you want to take a deep breath to say, how am I going to become a better leader? What parts of me am I going to heal so that I don't operate from a scarcity mindset? And really, you know what, just know there is enough room for everyone. And if I start seeing things that are not fair onto other people, to actually name it, right, and say, this is the cause and how are we then fixing it? This has been amazing. If you haven't clicked the subscribe button, look, you have to run and click that subscribe button because you can see the kinds of conversations that we have are meant to transform your life and of those around you. Like, comment, share with your friends and family because information is nothing if we keep it to ourselves. This has been Business Done Right with myself, Coach Khethiwe. Until next time, bye-bye.